Good morning, everybody. Hope you had a fantastic weekend. It was really hot and windy in the Wairarapa over the weekend, but it cooled down overnight, and hopefully there's some rain heading across from Wellington there today so that the garden gets a bit of a drink. We're still in that extended Christmas and New Year period at my house. And so on the weekend we had an aunt of one of my husband's aunts come to stay with us for a few days from the United Kingdom. So this aunt is in her 80s and she lives in a suburb sort of on the outskirts of London. She lives independently. She's doing very well, like many of us as we start to age. She's got a few more medications than she's ever had before, which manage a few age-related issues. But she's still driving. She's still committed to her community. She's still out there with friends and so on. So living a really good life. And obviously can fly massive distances to come and visit family here in New Zealand. So over dinner, I guess because of my work and her age and what she's seeing among her peers in the United Kingdom, we've been talking about health systems. So they've got the NHS in the United Kingdom, National Health Service, and we obviously have here Te Whatu Ora. And what's been interesting is the similarities between our systems and the similarities of what are the pressures that those systems are under. Why is that interesting? It's interesting because some would say that the change that was made between 2017 and 2020, and it's ongoing, the change is still ongoing, around disestablishing the DHBs and bringing them all together under the umbrella of Te Whatu Ora, has created a level of stress inside the system. And I would accept that. You can't have change without a level of stress. Human beings don't handle change very well, generally. And when it's a big system change, such as trying to remove those geographical winners and losers, and that was one of the major drivers behind the creation of Te Whatu Ora, because I was kind of there. When you're trying to do something that big, you're turning a very big boat. So it was going to take more time. And everything, in hindsight, everything can be done better. But I think what was really interesting is that the NHS and their hospital systems, their EDs, are overwhelmed in the same way that our EDs are overwhelmed. So there was a newspaper article recently about the Wellington Hospital Emergency Department running at 230-something% over capacity. Now, I don't know how you run at 230-something% over capacity. I don't know how you do it. And so the thing we have agreed on is that the human beings inside our hospitals, the human beings providing care and doing their best under these circumstances, are amazing human beings. We sat there and marveled at the fact that they show up every day for their shift, knowing that they are going to be short-staffed, that they are going to have to manage what is massive overrun of their capacity, and also on a reasonably regular basis, they are taking abuse, whether it be physical abuse or verbal abuse, from people who are, for one reason or another, not in their right minds, or are completely disrespectful of the assistance that's being provided for them that doesn't need to be provided for them. There's no law as such that these people need to be caring, and they do, and they are. So it was interesting having those conversations, because this is not new. This is not a new problem. We knew that this population demographic was coming. We've known for a long period of time, and we've literally done very little about it, if anything. And it's the United Kingdom is managing it just the way we're managing it. Australia's obviously managing it, and other nations are managing it. One of the things, though, that was really interesting was the use of the term bed blocker. Now, I didn't realise, because I've heard that term used here to refer to over 65-year-olds who are currently in hospital beds post the acute service that they needed. So they've had the acute service they needed. They no longer need acute level care. So they could go to another place for recovery care. But that doesn't mean that they can go home. because the recovery care that they need may still require highly trained individuals, right? And that word was used by my husband's aunt to talk about what is part of the problem of the flow, maintaining hospital flow so that people can come into ED, go up into the wards, get the acute care that they need, and then go back out again. I don't like the word bed blocker. I don't like the term bed blocker. It's a very negative term, and it conjures up an image of old people holding on to a hospital bed to try and block it from anybody else getting into it, which is not the case at all. Because we have allowed the system to become disconnected and fragmented, because we being the government, the state, has refused to accept that by making sure that residential aged care is sustainable and investable, so that it has the beds that can be needed for recovery and return home, for respite care, for short-term stays. They have created this situation. So these individuals are not blocking these beds. What we have here is we have an inability to discharge patients safely. That's what we've got. We've got delayed discharges. So what I'm hoping to do over this next year is change the language away from basically blaming somebody who doesn't have anywhere else to go because they still need a level of support to get well enough to now shift back to being independent, to move away from using that term bed blocker and use language like this is delayed discharges. That's what the problem is, delayed discharges and the inability to discharge patients safely. Okay, bye.